I never thought I'd be the type of guy to find myself in a situation like this. I'm Jake, and I've been married to Melissa for just over 5 years. Sure, we had our ups and downs, but I always thought our love was strong enough to weather any storm. We shared dreams, laughter, and yes, some pretty wild moments that made us feel like we were invincible. But recently, there were signs that things weren't quite right, and I brushed them off as stress or the usual marital grind. It started with the late nights. At first, I thought Melissa was just busy with her new project at work. She's ambitious, and I admired that about her. But when those late nights turned into weekends spent at the office, my gut started to twist in ways I couldn't ignore. The way she looked at her phone, quickly turning it over when I entered the room, felt off. The little things that used to make her smile seemed to evaporate, replaced by an air of secrecy that hung between us. One evening, I came home early, hoping to surprise her with dinner. As I entered our living room, I noticed. The TV was on, but it was muted. Melissa was seated on the couch, her phone in hand, a guilty look plastered across her face. I felt that pit in my stomach again, but I dismissed it. "Hey babe, you're home early," she chirped, almost too cheerfully. I could tell that it was a facade, but I wanted to believe we were okay. Then came the night when everything changed. I had taken a shower and, for whatever reason, decided to check my email on my phone while I was waiting for dinner to finish cooking. That's when I saw a message pop up on her phone, sitting unattended on the kitchen counter. My heart raced. It was from a guy named Mark, someone I'd never heard of. The message read, "Can't wait for tonight, babe. I've got something special planned." My heart sank. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was work-related. I knew everyone at her office and it didn't add up. My pulse quickened as I grabbed her phone, my hands trembling. I opened her texts, confirming my worst fears. The messages were riddled with flirting, innuendos, and explicit plans. It was clear that Melissa had been lying to me for months. I confronted her right then and there. "Who the hell is Mark?" I demanded, my voice shaking. The shock on her face morphed into annoyance. "What are you talking about?" she snapped, feigning confusion, but I didn't let her off the hook. I laid everything out, the texts, the late nights, the evasions. Melissa's demeanor shifted from denial to anger in an instant. "You're being paranoid, Jake. You have no idea what you're talking about," she yelled, her voice rising. I couldn't believe it. How could she act like I was the crazy one? I felt the rage boil inside me, fueled by her dismissive attitude. "So you're just going to lie to my face after everything?" Her face twisted into a smirk which made my blood run cold. "You think you can just accuse me and I'll roll over? You must be out of your mind." It was like she was enjoying this twisted game, and I was nothing more than a pawn. I had never seen this side of her before. This cold, calculating woman who could lie so easily, so casually. What hurt the most was the betrayal. This woman I loved had turned into a stranger right before my eyes. I felt like I had been living in a dream, and now I was wide awake in a nightmare. The anger morphed into something much worse, an overwhelming sense of sadness. As I dealt with the realization that my marriage was built on lies, I couldn't help but think about the future. Would I be able to forgive her? Could I even look at her the same way again? The thought of the love we once shared, now tainted, made my heart ache. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I couldn't trust. I had some tough choices ahead, and I couldn't let the emotions take control. I needed a plan, a way to regain my dignity and my life. This was just the beginning, and I was determined to figure out how to move forward. The days following the confrontation with Melissa were a blur of emotions. I went through a roller coaster of feelings, from rage to despair, questioning everything I thought I knew about our marriage. I felt trapped in my own home, haunted by the memories of the woman I once loved and the stark reality of who she had become. It was clear that I couldn't just sit there and let her dictate the terms of our relationship anymore. I took some time off work, telling my boss that I needed to deal with personal matters. Truth be told, I couldn't focus on anything other than the mess of my life. I found myself scrolling through social media, half-heartedly looking for distractions. That's when it hit me. I needed to gather evidence, not just for myself but for the future. A divorce wasn't something I had ever considered, but now it was rapidly becoming a reality. I started paying closer attention to everything Melissa did. I took note of her phone habits, how she would go to the bathroom for an extended time, her secretive conversations, the way she'd get defensive if I so much as asked about her day. The more I watched, the more I realized that her cheating wasn't just a singular event. This was an ongoing affair, a pattern of deceit that ran deep. One evening, I decided to take matters further. I set up a hidden camera in our living room, a last-minute thought that surged through my mind as I paced around. If she was going to lie, then I was going to catch her in the act. It felt wrong, but I was desperate. I needed closure, a definitive answer about what was happening behind my back. I set it up while she was out for a supposed girls' night, which I now knew was more likely a Mark's night. The following week was agonizing. Each day felt longer than the last, with the weight of betrayal dragging me down. I would check the camera footage whenever I got the chance. On one particularly mundane Tuesday evening, I sat on the couch, nervously biting my nails as I pressed play. My heart raced. At first, it was just the same old boring routine. Melissa came home, looking like she had a weight lifted off her shoulders. She tossed her bag on the couch and flopped down, reaching for her phone. I felt my pulse quicken as I watched her scroll, my stomach nodding as I anticipated what might happen next. And then it happened. A notification chimed and I held my breath. It was from Mark. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but her facial expressions told a story all their own. She smiled, laughed, and leaned back on the couch, clearly enjoying the conversation. It felt like a dagger to my heart. The casualness of it, the way she seemed at ease, shattered the last remnants of my hope. In that moment, I realized how deeply this had affected me. I had built a life with this woman, and she was throwing it away like it meant nothing. I felt a surge of anger bubbling up, mixed with an overwhelming sense of sadness. I wanted to confront her again, but I knew I had to be strategic about it this time. I needed to play my cards right to gain the upper hand. The next night, I planned to confront her again, but with undeniable proof. I gathered my evidence, screenshots, video clips, and her patterns of behavior, and prepared myself for the inevitable fallout. Part of me was terrified of what would come next, but another part felt a sense of empowerment. I was no longer the passive spouse. I was taking control of my life. When Melissa walked through the door that evening, bathed in the glow of the setting sun, she looked as if nothing was wrong. She smiled, asked about my day, and the whole charade felt nauseatingly normal, but I wasn't having any of it. I held up my phone, the screen illuminated with the damning images and videos I had captured. "Care to explain this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady though my heart raced. Her smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" I pressed play on the video. Her face went pale as she saw herself laughing and flirting with Mark, the very man who had been tearing our marriage apart. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. It was as if the weight of her lies crashed down on her all at once. "Tell me it's not what it looks like," I said, unable to contain the bitterness in my voice. "Tell me this isn't you betraying everything we built together." Melissa's eyes darted around the room, searching for a way out. "Jake, I can explain. It's not what you think." She finally blurted out, her voice wavering. "Then explain it too." "Me, I'm all ears." I challenged her, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to see her squirm, to understand just how far she had fallen. Her excuses spilled out in a frantic rush, each one more ridiculous than the last. "It's just harmless flirting," she insisted, trying to downplay the affair. "We were just having fun. It didn't mean anything." Each word dripped with insincerity, and I felt my anger simmering just below the surface. But it wasn't just anger that was consuming me. It was a profound sadness. I had fallen in love with a woman who could lie without flinching, who could throw away our life together for a cheap thrill. The emotional impact of this moment would stay with me for years to come, and as I stared into her eyes, I realized that the woman I loved was no longer there. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I deserve better than this, Melissa. I'm done with your lies." I could feel the strength rising within me, pushing me toward clarity. I had to decide how to move forward, and I knew that whatever happened next, I was not going to let her dictate my life any longer. It was time to think about my next steps. The confrontation with Melissa left me reeling. As the initial shock wore off, I was struck by a clarity I hadn't felt before. I had always been the one to compromise, to find a middle ground in our relationship. But now, I realized that it was time to put myself first. I had spent years supporting her dreams, cheering her on, while she had been busy destroying our marriage from the inside out. After that evening, things felt different between us. The air was thick with unspoken words and resentment. I continued to gather my thoughts and formulate a plan. I couldn't just walk away from everything we'd built together without being sure of what I wanted. I had to decide whether I could ever forgive her or if it was time to cut my losses and move on. The next few days passed in a fog. I continued to pay attention to her behavior, but it was like living with a ghost. Melissa was still going through the motions of our life, cooking dinner, pretending to care about how my day went, but I felt detached. Every smile she offered felt like a mask, a facade hiding the truth of what she had done. One evening, as we sat at the dinner table, I decided to probe a little deeper. "Do you think we can fix this?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral though my heart raced. If she was genuinely remorseful, perhaps there was a chance to salvage our relationship. Her fork clattered against her plate as she looked at me, surprise etched on her face. "Fix what? You mean our marriage?" "You can't be serious." I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. "You think I'd be asking if I didn't care? I'm trying to understand where we go from here." Melissa scoffed, rolling her eyes. "You think this is just going to magically go away? You caught me. I'm sorry if I hurt you, but I'm not going to pretend I'm perfect." Her words were laced with anger, but I could also sense a hint of fear. She was cornered, and her defensiveness was just a shield for the guilt she must have been feeling. I had to keep my composure, reminding myself that I was in control now. "You need to understand something, Melissa. This isn't just a minor mistake. You've been having an affair. You can't just brush it off as not perfect. You've lied to me over and over again." For the first time, I saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to get out of hand," she admitted softly, almost in a whisper. "It started as a joke with Mark, but it turned into something else." "Something else?" I echoed incredulously. "You mean you let it grow into a full-blown affair?" My voice was rising, and I felt the anger simmering back to the surface. "You say this like it's some kind of accident. You made choices, Melissa." She looked away, biting her lip. "I know, I messed up. I was lonely. You were so absorbed in your work. I felt neglected." That was it. The moment I had dreaded. I had always been a hard-working husband, and hearing her blame me felt like a slap in the face. "So you thought screwing another guy was the solution?" I shot back, my voice trembling with disbelief. Suddenly, her demeanor changed. "You don't understand how it feels to be ignored," she yelled, her voice breaking. "You were always focused on your career, and I felt like an afterthought." I felt the heat of her words wrap around me, and for a moment I didn't know how to respond. Yes, I had been busy with work, but that didn't justify her actions. I had always tried to provide for us, to give her the life she wanted. "So instead of talking to me, you decided to cheat?" I asked, my voice low and steady. She threw her hands up in frustration. "You're not getting it, you're not listening." I took a deep breath, trying to diffuse the rising tension. "I'm listening, Melissa. You're blaming me for your choice to cheat. But this isn't about me, this is about you and the decisions you made." Her expression softened momentarily as she looked down at her plate. "I know, I just don't know how to fix it." Silence hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I realized that at this moment I had to make a decision. Should I even consider trying to fix this? Or was it time to cut my losses and walk away? As the days wore on, I found myself reflecting on what I wanted. I would often replay our conversations in my mind, dissecting every word, every argument. I felt like I was fighting not just for my marriage, but for my own sense of self-worth. I had to determine if I could ever trust her again. One evening, I met with a close friend of mine, Mark. He was always a good listener and had been through his share of relationship troubles. As I laid out my situation, I could see the concern etched on his face. "Dude, you don't deserve this," he said, shaking his head. "You've been a good husband and she's just been selfish." I nodded, feeling a sense of camaraderie wash over me. "I just don't know if I can forgive her," I admitted. "But at the same time, I hate the thought of throwing everything away." Mark leaned in, his expression serious. "You have to ask yourself what you want, man. Do you really think she'll change? Or is this just going to be a cycle of pain? His words struck a chord. I needed to stop dwelling on what was and start focusing on what could be. As I walked home that night, I made a decision. I would confront Melissa one last time and lay everything on the table. I had to be clear about what I was willing to accept and what I wouldn't tolerate any longer. The next morning, I woke up feeling a strange sense of determination. I knew I had to take control of my life. I was ready to face Melissa, ready to find out if there was any chance of rebuilding or if I needed to start the process of moving on. It was time to make my intentions clear. That morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose, a determination I hadn't felt since I discovered Melissa's betrayal. I took a long shower, letting the hot water wash over me as I mentally prepared for the conversation I was about to have. I knew it was going to be a turning point, one way or another. I was tired of living in limbo, tired of feeling like I had to tiptoe around the truth. When Melissa came downstairs, I was already sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, my heart thumping in my chest. She walked in, her hair still messy from sleep, and offered me a tentative smile. "Morning," she said, her voice cautious. "Morning," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. I knew I had to present my case calmly, but the anger still simmered just beneath the surface. After a moment of silence, I decided to break the tension. "We need to talk, Melissa." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implications. She frowned, her expression shifting from casual to serious in an instant. "About what last night?" "About everything," I replied, forcing myself to maintain eye contact. "I can't keep pretending that everything is fine. We need to address what happened between us." Her shoulders tightened and I could see the guard go up. "Jake, what else is there to say? I told you I was sorry." "Yes, and I appreciate that," I said, trying to stay calm. "But sorry isn't enough. You shattered my trust, and I need to know if you're even willing to try to fix this." She blinked, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of vulnerability again. "I don't know if I can fix it. I messed up, and I understand if you can't forgive me." "That's the thing," I said, leaning forward. "I don't want to just sweep this under the rug. If we're going to move forward, it has to be on solid ground. I need to know that you're committed to making this work. I need to see real effort from you." Melissa ran her fingers through her hair, clearly distressed. "What do you want me to say? I can't just erase what happened. I realize what I did was horrible, but can't we just start fresh?" "Starting fresh means being honest with each other," I said firmly. "It means you cut all ties with Mark. No more texting, no more secret meetings. If that's too much to ask, then maybe we need to consider other options." Her face darkened and I could see the wheels turning in her head. "You're being unreasonable. You think it's that easy. Just cut him out of my life." I felt my blood boil at her reaction. "You're the one who made it complicated. You've been lying to me for months. Do you think I'm just going to sit here and pretend it didn't happen? You need to prove to me that you want this marriage." Melissa's expression shifted from anger to despair. "I want our marriage, Jake, but you don't know how hard this is for me. I didn't mean for it to happen like this." I was losing my patience. "You don't get to play the victim here. You made choices. I didn't force you into anything. You have to take responsibility for your actions." Silence enveloped us, and I could see the reality of my words sinking in. I took a deep breath, trying to temper my frustration. "What I'm saying is, I need a commitment from you. No more lies, no more excuses. I want to know you're willing to put in the work to rebuild what we had." She looked at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "And what if I can't?" I felt a pang of sadness at her admission. "Then we need to consider whether this marriage is salvageable. I'm not saying I want to walk away, but I can't stay in a relationship where I don't feel valued." Melissa's expression softened as she stared down at her coffee. "I don't want to lose you, Jake. I'll cut him out, I swear, but it's going to take time." I nodded, realizing that rebuilding trust wouldn't happen overnight. "I get that, but we need to set some ground rules. I'm not here to punish you, but I need to protect myself from further hurt." For the first time in a while, I saw a glimpse of the woman I fell in love with, the one who was willing to fight for our marriage. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said earnestly. It felt like a small victory, but I knew the road ahead would be rocky. I couldn't fully trust her yet, and I wouldn't let my guard down completely. But I was willing to give her a chance, if only to see if she meant what she said. From that day forward, things began to shift. Melissa cut off contact with Mark, and we started having open conversations about our feelings. It was as if we were learning to communicate all over again. We went to couples therapy, revisiting the foundations of our relationship and discussing how we had both contributed to the rift. Still, I was constantly battling my own doubts. There were moments when I'd catch her staring at her phone, and the old feelings of mistrust would bubble back to the surface. I would find myself scrutinizing every little thing she did, and the jealousy would gnaw at me. The emotional scars ran deep, and I had to remind myself that healing takes time. One evening, while we were watching a movie, I noticed Melissa's phone buzz on the coffee table. My heart raced as I thought about the possibility of it being Mark trying to contact her. I didn't want to react impulsively, but I couldn't help myself. I picked it up, and as I glanced at the screen, I felt a mix of relief and anger. It was just a notification from a food delivery app. But in that moment, I realized how fragile everything still was. I turned to her, frustration spilling out. "This is why we're in therapy. I can't keep doing this if you don't give me reason to trust you again." Melissa's eyes widened and she looked genuinely hurt. "I'm trying, Jake. I'm here, aren't I? I'm not going anywhere." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I know you're trying. I just need to see that you're committed to this. We can't go back to the way things were before." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't want to go back. I want to build something new, but it's hard. I messed up and I have to live with that." As we sat there, it became clear that this wasn't just a momentary setback. This would require ongoing work and commitment from both of us. I realized that while the journey ahead would be tough, it was one I was willing to navigate if she was there walking alongside me. With that thought, I set my sights on the future. I didn't know what that future would look like yet, but for the first time in a while, I felt a flicker of hope. We were both broken but willing to put in the effort, and that was a start. Time would tell if we could truly rebuild our marriage, but at least we were trying. And for now, that would have to be enough. The weeks turned into months, and as we continued our therapy sessions, I felt a mix of hope and skepticism. On one hand, I was proud of the progress we were making. On the other, there was always that niggling doubt in the back of my mind. I had to remind myself that rebuilding trust was a marathon, not a sprint. Melissa was making a genuine effort, and I could see that she was trying to be more open about her feelings. We began to communicate more, not just about the affair, but about our dreams, our desires, and the things that had pulled us apart in the first place. We spent weekends together, going on hikes, cooking meals, and even taking a spontaneous trip to the coast. I could feel the sparks of love rekindling, but there were also moments when I'd catch myself questioning her loyalty again. One night as we lay in bed, I felt the weight of my own worries pressing down on me. "Melissa," I said hesitantly, "do you ever think about what we would have done?" I hadn't caught you. She turned to face me, her expression serious. "All the time. I wish I could take it back. I can't believe how close I came to losing everything that mattered to me." "Do you really mean that?" I asked, searching her eyes for sincerity. "I need to know you're committed to making this work, not just because you got caught, but because you want us to succeed." She reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. "I do, Jake. I know I messed up, but I'm here now and I want to fix this. I want to build something better with you. I've learned so much about myself through all of this." Her words eased some of my tension, but the scars were still there. I remembered the feelings of betrayal all too vividly. Just when I thought we were making progress, the shadows of doubt crept back in. One evening, I returned home early from work, feeling optimistic. I had a surprise planned, dinner at our favorite restaurant to celebrate our latest therapy milestone. As I entered the house, I was greeted by an odd silence. I called out for Melissa, but there was no response. I felt a prickle of unease creeping up my spine as I moved through the house. When I reached the living room, my heart dropped. There on the coffee table lay her phone. It was buzzing repeatedly, and I could see that a text message had just come through. I hesitated for a moment, torn between trusting her and wanting to protect myself from further hurt. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. I picked up her phone, my heart racing as I unlocked it. The message was from Mark. "Can't wait to see you again this weekend. I miss you." Time seemed to stand still as I processed what I was reading. Anger surged through me, hot and blinding. I felt the betrayal wash over me like a wave, drowning any hope I had left. How could she do this to me again? After everything we had worked through, I didn't take the time to think. I stormed into the kitchen, where Melissa was cleaning up after a quick meal. The look on her face shifted from surprise to confusion as she saw the fury in my eyes. "Jake, what's wrong?" I didn't say a word. Instead, I held up her phone, the screen illuminated with Mark's message. "Care to explain this?" I spat, my voice trembling with rage. Her eyes widened, and for a moment she looked like a deer caught in headlights. That's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like," I echoed, incredulous. "You've been texting him after everything. You said you cut ties." "I didn't mean to," she stammered, her voice rising in desperation. "It's not like that. I was going to tell you, I swear." I felt my heart shatter again as the weight of her words crashed down on me. "You were going to tell me? How could you even think that would be acceptable? This isn't a game, Melissa." Tears streamed down her face as she took a step toward me. "You have to believe me, I messed up. But it's not what you think. I was just trying to figure things out. I wanted to just end it, but I didn't know how. Figure things out," I shouted, rage boiling over. "You don't get to play the victim anymore. You've done this before, and I can't keep being the fool." At that moment, I felt the ground shift beneath me. I was enraged and heartbroken, a combination that left me feeling utterly lost. I turned away from her, pacing back and forth as I tried to regain my composure. When I turned back, I saw her standing there, sobbing as if the tears could wash away her sins. "Please, Jake, I'm sorry. I know I've hurt you, but I want to make it right. I love you." I couldn't process her words. The betrayal felt fresh and raw, reopening wounds I thought had begun to heal. "I can't keep doing this, Melissa. You're either all in or all out. If you can't commit to our relationship, then maybe it's time to end this for good." Her face crumpled and she collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "No, please, I can do better. I'll cut him off. Just give me a chance." I stood there, torn between my anger and the flicker of love I still felt for her. But I realized I was standing at a crossroads. I had given her opportunities before, and each time she had chosen betrayal over honesty. "Maybe it's too late for chances, Melissa," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need to protect myself now. I can't allow myself to be hurt again." As I walked out of the room, I felt like I was walking away from everything I had ever wanted. I had fought to rebuild our relationship, and now I was faced with the possibility of having to let it go. The thought crushed me, but I knew that I had to be strong. If she couldn't be truthful, then I had to make the hardest decision of my life. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with thoughts of our past, the good moments overshadowed by the pain of betrayal. I felt a profound sadness, but I also felt a sense of relief. I had finally recognized my worth. I wouldn't allow myself to be a victim of her choices any longer. It was time to take back control of my life, whether it meant embracing the unknown or taking a leap into the future without her. In the morning, I would have to have the conversation that would change everything. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face whatever came next. It was time to finally decide what my future would hold. I tossed and turned throughout the night, the weight of my decision pressing heavily on my chest. With the first light of dawn breaking through our bedroom window, I knew I could no longer put this off. I needed to confront Melissa one more time, to lay everything out on the table and make my intentions clear. As I got out of bed, the reality of what lay ahead hit me hard. I didn't want to hurt her, but I also knew that staying in a toxic relationship would only hurt us both in the long run. I had to prioritize my own well-being, and that meant making the hardest choice of my life, walking away. I made my way to the kitchen, where I found Melissa sipping coffee, her eyes red from a lack of sleep. The tension was palpable. She looked up at me, her expression a mix of dread and resignation. "Jake, I know you're upset," she began, but I cut her off. "I'm not here to argue or to make excuses. I need to be clear about where I stand," I said, my voice steady but firm. "Last night was the final straw. You've shown me that you're not ready to commit to our marriage. You keep going back to Mark, and I can't keep pretending that you're going to change." Her face fell and her lips trembled as she searched for words. Please, just let me explain. I didn't mean for it to happen again. I promise I'll cut him off. Just give me one more chance. I shook my head, cutting through the noise. No, Melissa, this isn't just about the affair, it's about trust. I've given you multiple chances, and each time you've chosen to betray that trust. I can't keep putting myself through this. She reached across the table, tears streaming down her cheeks. Jake, I love you. I know I messed up, but I'm willing to do the work. I can be better. I want to believe you, I said, feeling my resolve waver for a moment. But I can't base my future on empty promises. This isn't fair to either of us. The air grew heavy with silence as we both absorbed the weight of my words. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts as I prepared to say the next part. I think it's best if we separate. I need time to figure out what I want, and I can't do that while you're still in my life. I deserve someone who is fully committed and honest with me. Melissa gasped, her hands covering her mouth as if the very words had physically struck her. Jake, please don't. I can't lose you. I'm not happy like this, Melissa. We've tried, but this isn't working. I need to prioritize my happiness. I can't keep living in this cycle of pain and distrust. She collapsed into her chair, her body shaking with sobs. I thought we were making progress. I thought you believed in us. I did, but progress means accountability, and somehow you've slipped back into old patterns. I replied, my voice softening slightly. This isn't about throwing everything away. It's about recognizing that we've hit a wall. Maybe this separation will give us both clarity. I saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes, though it was buried beneath a tidal wave of grief. I never wanted it to come to this, Jake. I never wanted to hurt you. I know, I whispered, my heart aching for her. But sometimes love isn't enough. I have to take care of myself now. Melissa nodded, tears still streaming down her face, and in that moment I felt a profound sadness for what could have been. I had loved her deeply, but in the end, love alone wasn't enough to keep us together. As I walked out of the kitchen, I felt a bittersweet mix of relief and heartbreak. I had made my choice. I was taking control of my life, even if it felt like a loss. The following weeks were an emotional whirlwind. I moved into a small apartment nearby and took time to reflect on everything that had happened. I focused on myself, rediscovering my passions and interests outside of my relationship with Melissa. I spent time with friends, explored hobbies I had put aside for too long, and even started running again. Slowly but surely, I began to feel like myself again. During that time, I realized something important. I had the power to shape my own future, no matter how difficult the past had been. I learned that it's okay to prioritize self-worth and that not every relationship is meant to last forever. Eventually, Melissa reached out to me, wanting to meet for coffee. I agreed, curious to see how she was doing and hoping to find some closure. As we sat across from each other, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken words. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she admitted, her voice shaky. I know I messed up and I'm trying to work on myself. I'm sorry for everything. I nodded, appreciating her honesty. I care about you, but I've learned that I need to put myself first. I can't be in a relationship that doesn't bring me joy or peace. She wiped away a tear. I understand. I hope you find happiness, Jake. You deserve it. We parted ways that day with a sense of mutual respect. It wasn't easy, but it felt like a weight had been lifted. I had taken the difficult steps to heal, and while the scars would always remain, I knew they were part of my journey. As I walked away from that cafe, I felt a renewed sense of hope. My future was unwritten, but I was ready to embrace it. I had learned that I could turn the page and begin a new chapter, one filled with promise and the possibility of love that was true and honest. In the end, I walked away not just from Melissa, but from the pain of betrayal, armed with the knowledge that my happiness was worth fighting for. And as I ventured into the unknown, I felt ready to face whatever came next, this time on my own terms.